It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Wednesday, July 17th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Health is Happiness, the Evangelism Scripts Word Study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? I hope you guys have had a great and awesome week. We're already at the middle, and I hope that you guys have been able to put the words into action, have some realizations, and been able to live the life as a bride this week. Don't forget, tomorrow is Q&A Thursday, and that is every single week, so get those questions ready. Send them to me whenever you can. And if you haven't yet, please leave a like and comment to build our community. Especially this video right now. Okay, so I'm super happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive, so let's get up and support each other each and every day. This week's Sunday message title is According to the Lord God's Will. Okay, so it's Wednesday, the middle of the week, and it's already been a pretty couple of crazy days. I have a friend over here from Korea. She just finished head leading, and she brought her parents just for a little vacation. She'll be leaving, her and her parents will be leaving tomorrow. And then from Friday, once again, starting up some more friends coming from Taiwan and stuff. So I'll be just heading with them for about 2 days. And then I get a 2-day break. And then once again, some more friends from Korea come for another 3 days. So it is pretty crazy. You know, it's kind of funny. I post like who's coming over and stuff, and what I'm doing, and taking these people out touring and stuff, right? And some people are like going, what is going on in Malaysia? Are there events going on? Because they keep seeing more and more people visiting Malaysia. And they think there might be some type of huge event happening here. But reality is it's not a huge event. It's more of a lot of people are coming here for vacation, and when they're choosing a destination place, like for instance, my friends from Korea that are here right now, she was considering Taiwan or Malaysia, but she doesn't really know anyone in Taiwan. Like she doesn't know a lot of people that can take her and her parents around and such, but she knows that I'm here, so she's like, oh, okay, might as well go down to Malaysia. So I think part of it is vacation time. Around the world, but I know America for sure, because there's it's the summer holidays. In Asia, I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm not sure if you guys even have like a major summer break like the same as it is in America. But the one thing I do know is if you find a place where you know someone, or there's someone there to help you out, I think it's a huge thing, because you're going to go to a foreign country you've never been before, but yet you have someone there that you know, and it allows them, to kind of feel still comfortable in a foreign country too. So I think that's part of the reason why they come here. But, I did open the invitation, and I do think I didn't realize this many people would be coming to Malaysia. But I am actually grateful and thankful that they do. And I think one thing that's kind of cool is, whenever these friends come from all over the world, right? When I introduce them to some friends from Malaysia and such, it's really cool, because it kind of, that sometimes you want to go to other countries. And I think one of the biggest benefits of constantly traveling to other countries is it kind of opens your heart and your mind to different cultures, different ways of thinking and stuff like that too, right? And sometimes it's hard for people to just go out and meet people from all around the world. I would say even in Malaysia, like the place everyone always goes to is obviously Korea. And then secondly, they probably go to Taiwan or something along that line. Or they might go somewhere close like Singapore or Thailand or something along that line. But if you have people from, all over coming to visit, I think it's something where people don't need to go and travel out, but they're able to experience different people, different thoughts, different mindsets and such too. Just to let you know, guys, the background is kind of noisy, right? I am actually at a cafe in a resort at the top of a mountain. And of course, everyone in Malaysia knows where that is. I'm in Genting, but it's like a super crazy, huge hotel that has a casino, has a shopping mall, has an amusement park. It has everything there. And basically, it's a resort on top of a mountain. And this is one of the places where people, everyone kind of gets to visit if you're not going to travel too far outside of Kuala Lumpur. But, I take people here because there's a cable car that comes up and stuff like that too. So it's kind of a fun place. And I would say it's a fun place, but I know that when my parents came over, because my parents are all over 70, and my good friend from Korea, her parents are over 72. So I think it's not as cool as, it is for young people. Like, remember when I told you guys when like 7 Americans came over? It was like me and the parents were just hanging out, and all the young guns, they're like all in their early 20s. They're going to the amusement park. They're going on rides and stuff like that. So it's a different type of feel. Like if you're here to shop, plenty of places to shop here. There's even an outlet mall at the bottom also. But I'm recording in one of the same places I was recording during that time when I was with the Americans, right? So, yeah, I'm already exhausted. I'm already exhausted, just driving around. I think every 3 days I'm driving, I think around 500 kilometers. Around every 2 to 3 days, I'm 500 kilometers, which is a lot, right? So I'm thankful that I'm able to. I like driving though, so I'm thankful I'm able to drive and such. But it's very interesting just being in this setting, in this situation, and I'm very thankful that they are visiting, and hopefully, if you guys are, if you're Malaysians too, yeah, and if you want to meet some of these people also, yeah, I think I think all of them are like, yeah, we'll meet members. Oh yeah, we'll meet members. Like, oh, there was no problem kind of thing, right? So I definitely think it's a good idea for a lot of people to be meeting tons of people from all over the world too. Yesterday, I hope you enjoyed the podcast with Eddie Kwan. And what do you guys think of the new poll? The new poll did come out. Let me just take a quick look at the poll and see what people are actually voting at the moment. Let me just pop this one up here. So the new poll, very interesting one that he talked about yesterday, which was when do we invite people to church, right? And there's like the 4 options of if someone comes, we should let them in, which is 6% at the moment. They should at least learn some core lessons first, which is 31%. Should have a process of checking is 50%. They should learn all the lessons, which is 13%. So I think it's a very good question. It's a very good question. And, I've had some experiences with this too. And the one thing we do know about Providence at the moment is Providence is not full. We're not even close to being public yet. Like, we're not public church at the moment. And if you are in a public space, like Eddie was talking, he was saying that, they're on a public street where it's open to the public. They can walk by and see what's happening inside the church, right? But if anyone sees a church, isn't it public? Do you know what I mean? Like, you definitely would say that a church, when you see a church when you're walking by, that anyone can just walk in kind of thing. But of course, for us, if it's a public church, that means just anyone off the street can come in, right, to a service or an event or something along that line. And let me tell you one story. One time when I was in LA, we had a homeless person come to church during an event, a homeless person. And one of the reasons why we really couldn't do anything is because another newcomer saw the homeless person outside and invited them into the church, right? And, if they don't know about Providence and stuff like that too, it's not like they know the rules or they know what each church is going for, right? So they look and say, we're a church, so we're here to help a lot of people and help the community. So they'll just invite someone from the outside. It was a homeless person. And the thing that makes me think about this is, of course they were smelly, of course, but I would say the part that would make me think more deeply at this moment in time was not knowing the condition of the person. Like, for instance, if it's a homeless person, we don't know what their mental history is. Like, do they have depression, bipolar? Are they violent? Are they this or that? Do they have drug use? We have no idea. And that's why, even for me, I'd be like, man, that would be kind of dangerous, wouldn't it? It'd be kind of dangerous to just invite a homeless person in because, well, especially in America, you're going to have those types of people that have mental problems and such, right? And they could cause some issues, and it's very possible that they could also get violent too. We have no idea. Thank God, during that time when I was in LA, when that homeless person came in, there was absolutely no problems. The only thing that was kind of strange, and we learn more about this as we grow up, is this homeless person was actually a veteran. They used to be in the Army. And you can tell, this person was much, much older, so I think this person must have been from the Vietnam War. I think so, because in the middle of the sermon, and it wasn't a Sunday service, it was actually a night event, what happened was in the middle of the service, this homeless guy would start to pretend to start shooting a gun. You hear him go pew, 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 and you see him looking through a scope. Of course, there's no real gun. He's acting like he has a gun in his hands and he's shooting. And we'd be looking at what's going on, and we turn to look and you see him shooting this air gun and just shooting and stuff. And we're like, what the heck is going on? But you realize this person probably has a lot of trauma, right? Pretending to shoot someone or shoot some things. And, it was quite sad to see. And I think that is something that when it comes to certain situations, if it's a homeless person, I think we do have to react a little bit differently. But if it's just a person, a regular person says, oh, there's a church here, I should go in. I think that is something that we are in a transition stage. And I'm not sure. I would love to hear what you guys think about how we should deal with those types of people. Because we know that eventually, right? Eventually, we do need to be completely public and open. Eventually, right? And, but the whole question is about right now. What do you guys think? Do they need to learn everything? Do they need to realize? Do they need to know just a couple of lessons? Can we get someone off the street who knows nothing? Right? And we're not talking about a homeless person. We're talking straight up someone who is, what do you call it? Someone who's just a regular person, sees that we have a church service going on and they want to come in. And I think that's something that is a good discussion topic too. Give me 1 second. I do need to have a sip of my coffee. By the way, this is terrible coffee. It really is. I would definitely give it a 5. I give a pass. A coffee shop that I would go back to is a 7 for me, and this is a 5.9. Probably not even a 6. It's not very good, but I would say I do need the caffeine kick. I definitely need this caffeine kick. Oh, so I was having a discussion with a leader the other day. A very, very healthy one. And I was very happy about this conversation. And it was really about the understanding of self, right? Discernment and understanding about ourselves, right? And for me, I realize, and I've said this many times before, is I am truly the rebel pastor, right? I am. I'm very rebellish. And I don't even mind being the rebel pastor. I don't mind being the one that goes against the grain. But I do realize it doesn't come with all flowers and roses. Being the rebel. Because the term rebel is not a positive, when it comes to church and you say, I'm a rebel pastor, it's a funny way of, it's a fun title, but also at the same time, if you look at it from a more serious point, it's kind of negative too. And personally myself, I do understand what comes with it. And, you know, for me, I have to be accountable for everything I say and everything I do. And there's an image that will come with being a rebel pastor. And I would say, at times, not most, I would say, like, when is it okay to be a rebel? And I would say it's going to be not most of the time. Like, at most times, we're following the grain. We're going with the grain. We're trying to be comfortable, trying to work together. Like, that should be, I would say, like 90+% of the time is that, right? In most cases, I think we have a good enough system just to roll forward with it, right? However, there is going to be that 5% of time where being a rebel is necessary, right? Remember, I'm saying like well over 90% is going to be we're following that what we should be doing. And sometimes it is necessary to be a rebel. Sometimes it is. Of course, like I said, well, you know, I'm telling you guys right now is I'm not saying it's good to be a rebel all the time. For me, I don't want to promote rebellion in province. Like one thing I don't want, right? I would rather, I'd rather just open up people's hearts and their minds to discussion so that we can figure out what is the right thing. Because technically speaking, you know, we have leaders, and you know, even with this week's message too, you could see how Sunsim is talking about. He talks about headquarters in the Sunday message and stuff like that too. Is we're all human, and because we're all human, we need to keep asking the one that God sent. Because we're human, we do make mistakes, we do cause losses, and one of the things about being part of a community is not a situation where it's just like whatever the head leader says you have to do, because that's not the way Sunsim wants it either. Sunsim wants it to be in discussion. Sunsim wants it to be reasonable. Sunsim wants it to be logical. And I would even say to the extent of, even if something is right, well, this is what Sunsim said in the past too, even if something is right, but if you don't discuss and you just force it, it becomes wrong, right? And even if something is plan A, like the really, really awesome plan, like the best situation, if it's not discussed, or if it is discussed and everyone would rather do B, it's better to do B than to do A, even though A is a better plan, right? Because it's more about doing it together. And that's why I would say that in almost all cases, we should be going with the flow. We should be, right? And there's going to be those rare cases where a rebel is necessary. And I would say, like I said, far and few do we need a rebel. Far and few times. However, in those times when it is necessary to have a rebel, you know, it's not an easy thing. It really isn't. For instance, for me, I'm strong. I have a strong character. I know this for sure. I have a strong character, and this is kind of what allows me to rebel when I think it's necessary at a certain point, right? When it's like, oh, we got to rebel. Like I can't just keep doing it the same way. I can't do it like this. And during the conversation, I was like, you know what? I agree. I completely agree that we shouldn't be doing it like that all the time. And then I started to think about myself too. I was like, when I think about myself, and of course, a rebel has to be strong because, you know, you're going in against an entire establishment or something along that line, right? And for me, it's easier for me because I am strong. But I would say when we're strong, like in my case, the harder part is to shut it off. I think that's harder, which is something I realize, you know, is just not an easy thing to do, to just shut off the rebel mode. And to shut off the rebel mindset is, you know, is something where you really have to put a ton of effort in, right? Because you have to be that strong to rebel, right? Which means you need to be that strong to turn it off. So I was thinking for myself, I was like, you know, since I've been out on my own for so long, and I'm by myself most of the time, it's almost like there's no need for me to shut it off. Well, because I'm not dealing with people at all. I'm rarely dealing with people. You know what I mean? Because I'm usually, most of my time here, even in Malaysia, most of my time is alone. It really is. Which means I'm not interacting with a ton of people doing, like working together and stuff. And when I think back, I was like, oh, I have to think to myself very carefully. And if I were to take it in a marketing aspect, I'll be like, sometimes something was necessary for a certain moment, but is not necessary for the next moment, which means that if you go too far in one direction, then you've branded yourself in that area, in that way, where it's far better to, at a certain point, you need to rebrand. Do you know what I mean? Because once that rebel stage is over, once that rebel stage is like done, and we're like, okay, so now there's a shift in direction, and this is a great thing that we're doing right now, I think that there has to be a time that you got to shut it off and start, moving together again. And I myself thought that was a great conversation. I was like, yeah, that's so true, because we don't need a rebellion every time. It's almost like you'll hear about some great rebellion in history, but you only need it at that moment as a great rebellion. But after that, it's no longer necessary, no longer needed, right? So I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. And as I was talking and like kind of expressing myself, I was like, oh, this makes a lot more sense. So I was like, oh, maybe it's time for a rebrand. Not the YouTube channel, obviously, because technically I am a rebel to the former faith, right? I am. I'm a rebel to the former faith. But either way, I thought it was, very, very interesting. Interesting conversation, and it made me look at myself more deeper and about the past, present, and the future at the same time. So I thought that was quite interesting and something that I think is necessary to think about for the future also. When I was talking to my Australian friend, and me and my Australian friend, we're just talking about Providence, we're talking about life, we're talking about 2023, we're just talking about everything all together, and we were both just happy that both of us are doing well and strong. And the question he asked me, I thought was an interesting question, was, do you think we have too many leaders? And he was like going, I think there's too many leaders. And in my head, I'm like, too many? Maybe in Korea, or maybe in like a bigger country. But I was like, in the smaller countries, I think we need more leaders than there are positions. And one of the reasons is, like for instance, when we go into economics and such, one of the key ways we're able to raise the level of anything is competition. You know what I mean? For instance, if imagine you have a company and you're hiring a new position, like some CEO or some marketing manager, something along that line. There is going to be, the quality of your company will be different if there's 20 people signing up for the same position rather than having one or two. Because when you have 20 people, that's massive competition. And when you have massive competition, everyone has to have an edge. They got to work that much harder to get that one job that's for 20 people. Do you know what I mean? Competition is one of the keys to raising the levels. And that's why, for me, I was like, we need more leaders than there are positions. Because more competition means that more people will be vying for the same missions, which means that people need to be higher in level to get that mission. Imagine if you had 7 people that were applying for the head leader position of your church. If you have 7 people, you can interview them. You can talk to them. You can give them scenarios of what would you do in this situation? What is your character like? What is your strengths? What are your weaknesses? You get to learn all these things and find the best one that is more suitable for your church, right? Other than having just one person and then, or like imagine you have like 10 churches and you only have 10 head leaders. All you can do is shift them around. That's all you can do. But if you have 10 positions available and 100 people, then only 10% get it, which means everyone has to work harder. Everyone has to become better. Everyone has to raise their skill level, right? And when you have more competition, the overall level of leadership will reach a higher level. So, obviously when we look at, I would say smaller countries, we're not going to have as many leaders. So, and we're not going to have this big competition for getting these positions too. So another question could be is like, well, until we get to that point, what do we do in the meantime? right? Smaller countries, foreign countries, there's not like a huge pipeline of tons of leaders that are moving up and trying to become new leaders for the future. We actually have not enough leaders, right? And that kind of means that less competition means that the overall level, there won't be a striving for, things to reach a higher level as it could be. And there's no one pushing you in competition to reach that level also. So when I saw that, I was like, that's kind of true. It really is. It really is true that smaller countries, because they're small, you're just not going to have as many leaders. And this is kind of just a natural thing as it moves up. But I am hoping that as our countries grow more and more, we're going to have a higher and higher level of competition, higher level of people who are striving, pushing themselves to be educated more, to be able to work on their skills so that they can become better leaders also. Like even when I'm talking to my friend right now, who's just stepped down from head leading, she was head leading for over almost 4 years. Now, she's done that, and she's in a waiting list to see if there's someone else, another church that wants to pick her up or not, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And I think that's, right now there's more leaders in Korea than there are positions, right? So there's people that are in waiting, people that are learning. You can get an idea of what people think about each. People have an idea and stuff like that too, right? And I think it's something that we do kind of need to look forward to for the future. I think it's something we should be looking forward to for the future. That's what, and we want it. We do want the competition, even though there's not much right now. I think it's kind of one of the natural processes. But it's kind of weird though, because remember I told you before that when I was growing up in Providence, like the dream was to be a pastor. Which is interesting, right? That was the dream for like the majority of the people that all came into Providence around that time. My time was like 98 to 2003, 2004. Like it seemed like, maybe 97 to 2002, 2003. That seemed like the time, like the people coming in all wanted to be leaders of some sort, which I thought was quite interesting. Either way. So yeah, that's those are my thoughts. And that was an interesting conversation that we had. Before we go any further into the second segment today, one thing, I thought there was a great comment. Because I think it was on Monday, I talked about the blessing and how it's very different from the world and it's backwards almost, right? And there's this comment, a question that came in about how do you find the will first? How do you confirm the will, right? And of course, that's something that is going to happen. If you join the blessing and you set the strong, powerful conditions, you will be able to find the will and know it. And I would say that if you really want to to see how the will is actually confirmed, talk to people who successfully were blessed, and you'll hear their stories. It's really amazing how they meet and they're like, "This is it. I can feel it. Like I feel something," or someone says. There is some type of confirmation or some type of sign that helped them. And it's different for every person. Some people, they have a feeling. Some people, they are looking for a certain sign, right? Some people, there's something different for every person. So I think it's something that is part of the process. It's going to happen. And the next part of the question was, will the will become pressure and make the love or marriage become a responsibility? And the couple, are they really going to love each other? And they basically, this person says, just my anxiety and fear are preparing for the future, right? And I would say that that would be one of the ways that you don't want to prepare for the future, which is through anxiety and fear. Like if you come in with the mindset of anxiety and fear, all you will see is a negative. And there's this thing that in sports broadcasting, there's something that they call paralysis by analysis. So for instance, let's just say that you're a soccer player and imagine you're thinking way too much about what to do with the ball. Like you're thinking way too much. Should I pass to him? But if I pass to him, then what if this person takes it away? Then I'm the only person back here, and then this is going to happen, and then they're going to score. It's all my fault. Like There's one thing is some people are going to analyze things too much in a negative way that they can't do anything, right? That fear and anxiety paralyzes you. It freezes you so you cannot do anything. And like I was just talking to another friend the other day, and when we were talking about evangelism, like, hey, if we do it through the internet, this, and this, we'll do it like this. And then someone will come up and say, but if we have this many newcomers, then who's going to take care of them? Who's going to teach all of them? And that's something you don't want. That, honestly, that's a problem you do want. It's a good problem. Why is it a good problem? We have so many newcomers, we cannot take care of all of them. That is a good problem rather than, oh, there's no one here, so we're just kind of sitting around because there's no newcomers at all. Which problem would you rather have? It's a great problem. It means people have to step up. People have to start lecturing on their own. People are gonna have to start, training themselves through these newcomers and stuff like that too. It's a great problem. So you kind of get to see the difference in thoughts and thinking, right? Even in business, if you have so much demand, you can't keep up with it. What does that mean? Well, for us, we'd be thinking, oh my gosh, I have so many orders, I can't keep all of them. So many people are going to be upset and afraid. You know what a real business person does? They raise the price. They raise the price. And when they raise the price, some people will not be able to buy it. And they're like, it's too high for me. But since you had such a crazy amount of demand, you can start making it into a luxury product. You can start making it into something that's very, very high level. And I would say that's something that we should consider. We really, really should. Consider it as something like, oh, wow, if I can't, I need to get this done. And I need to understand this. We need to understand that there's always two ways of looking at it, but you can't get yourself into a place of fear and anxiety where you cannot even enjoy the blessings that you received. There's a reason it's called the blessing, right? And if you think about it, even the question itself is, will the will become pressure and make the marriage become a responsibility, right? And I would say that is the number one thing we should want first. The way the world does it, it is focused only on the feeling and that love first. And we see that it doesn't work. So I think that's something that we have to do, we really have to think about and look at too is, wait a second, the way the world is doing it, it doesn't work. And because it doesn't work, it should make us think twice of, is that the right way? Should we even be wanting it that way? And I would say that the thing that matters first above all things is the will. What is the will of God? We got to figure that out first. Because if it's not the will, then what does it matter if you fall in love? If it's not even the will that God wants. Think about the opposite of that. Would you want to be in a marriage that even if you felt something for this person, it was against God's will, would you still want it? You ever thought about that? I was like, yeah, that's interesting because the world doesn't care about what God wants. The world cares about first what they want. It's centered on themselves. But if you think about this, the way Sunsi puts it is this. The way Sunsi puts it is, inside God's will is your will. Which means if God loves you so deeply and so much, and you find and confirm the will, do you think God's going to put you with someone that you hate, you despise, that you don't even want to be next to? I think that wouldn't be a loving God, right? That's why the trust in God is there more than human beings or even more than ourselves. Because finding God's will contains your will, and that should bring comfort, right? Knowing that we have a loving God that wants the best for us. Really wants the best for us. And that is something I do think that we should really consider for the future too is, I think already in the comment itself, you can already see where the bigger issue is anxiety and fear are, that's what's fueling their future. And this is where our absolute trust in God, a loving God that only wants the best for us, that wants better than what we can even imagine for ourselves. Remember, it's a love history. And the love starts with God's will. And contained inside God's will, you will be put with someone who you are going to, that God is not only going to be good for God, but it's going to be good for all of us too. Right? So I would say that the fear and anxiety has to switch over to hope and love. Hope, faith, love. The faith in God that He is loving, the faith in God that He loves us that deeply, and the faith in God that He wants only the best for us, which includes love too, right? So I would say that prepare for the future with hope, faith, and love. The hope of something so amazing that you can't even picture it. The faith that God is that, is that type of God who wants only the best for us, which includes love. And of course, because that last part is faith, hope, and love, that it's going to contain that absolute love where you will fall in love, where you'll find the best person, right? Remember, this is God's history. This is not, don't think of God's history or the blessing as like some type of, what do you call it? Like some type of job thing or duty that we go through. And it's just like, here, this person is yours. It is finished. It's not like that. It's a real human history. And it's a history of love. So I would say, I'm going to be super honest with you guys here too, is if I look at my life too, it is very easy to fall in love, I would say. And you'd be like, what? Can you really fall in love that easily? And I'd be like, definitely. You just got to spend enough time with someone, right? You just got to spend enough time with someone. I've seen in my life in high school too that sometimes I would start to like one of my close friends just because we hang out so much. They're cool. We get along. Never thought about it in the beginning, but as we start to hang out, you start to like them, right? And then there's those that you start off with like the attraction, like, oh my gosh, this person's so pretty. And then you start to pursue the person because they're pretty. And later, you could fall in love with them too. But I've seen both sides happen. So I wouldn't worry about the love part. Human beings and God, we're all made as beings of love. I think falling in love is the easier part. I think the harder part is finding the will. That's my personal opinion. Either way. So that's just kind of a couple things that were on my mind. Hope it's something that you guys can think about also. But yeah, before we get into the evangelism scripts, like that's my segment 1 for today. A lot of food for thought here and love to hear your thoughts on this too. And I do think actually Chelsea and Aaron could also talk about that also. Like that's a legit concern. The question was, will the will, like finding that person in the blessing, will that will become pressure and make the marriage become a responsibility? And I think that would be a great question for Chelsea and Aaron of what they went through, or they can interview other people on that subject there too, where, in the Western world particularly, where the divorce rate is so high, interestingly, we're the ones who are wanting to fall in love first. You know what I mean? But yeah, that would be a great question. I think that can come up in the Love and Life episode also. Okay, well there it is, guys. That is segment number 1. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let's before we get into the evangelism scripts, let's move into the first music break of the day. right, so let's get into today's evangelism scripts word study for today. As you can tell right now, the sound is a lot better because I'm already back home. I only recorded the first part at the shopping mall at the resort over there in Gunting, but I have come back home and now I'm able to record in the comfort of my room where it is more soundproof. There's a lot of bedding and curtains and stuff like that too, so it's a lot better for me. But I did want to go over something when it comes to the evangelism scripts, and I did go over like 4 or 5, and I think those are actually starting to be enough for you guys to start like practicing some, memorizing them, and using them on the fly. And I'll tell you this, the more scripts you have, the better, because when someone does come to you and say, ask you a question, or you find a certain type of newcomer, then you'll have these scripts in your pocket and you'll easily be able to use the right one for the right person. Now, what I want to talk about today in the evangelism scripts is my thought process on how I would actually say that my thought process for these evangelism scripts is nothing different than me answering questions for Q&A. I would say there's nothing different between the two. Well, there is something a little bit different because it's way more refined and it's used as I'm using it for like almost officially when I'm going out to evangelize. But I have this process I use when it comes to doing my evangelism scripts, and I would say most of my thoughts and my coming up with these evangelism scripts, they do come from a lot of Q&As. All right, so let me just go through. Let's just say 2 to 3. Let's go through 2 to 3 steps. Right? 2 to 3 steps on how to make these scripts, or in other words, it's basically just a Q&A because they're going to ask you a question. You're going to know that they're in some type of predicament where you need to solve that answer for them. Okay? So number 1, the first thing that's going to happen is we need to listen carefully. All right? We have to listen very carefully, not only to the question, but the information that comes outside of the question itself. Right? So I'm thinking here like, oh, okay, so what is the actual question? And let me give you an example. Remember today in segment number 1, I talked about the comment. It was like a Q&A kind of thing about when I talked about on Monday about how great the blessing is. And then there were some questions that came out. This person in the comment section was just like, well, how do I know if it's the will? Like, how can I confirm it's the will or not? Or what if I know it's the will, but then it kind of forces me into a marriage that's all about responsibility and no longer about love, right? So here we have these questions that came out of it. And the interesting thing is I found the answer outside of the questions, right? So what was the real question that they were asking? And the real question came after the questions, which was, I have fear and anxiety about my future, right? And I would say that a lot of times the person asking will give you this type of information for you to say, oh, okay, so I see what's going on. Or you may need to ask more questions. The person like, oh, why'd you ask this? Oh, why is it on your mind? What's the thing that's making you think this way, right? But in this, the question that came in the comments from the member, it's a great question. And my answer is a bit different. As you can hear from segment number 1, I'm talking more about the fear and anxiety, right? So number 1 is I'm looking for the real question, or what is the real problem that we're dealing with. And with that first person, that like using an example as that person in the comment section, I'm figuring out that the issue is not the questions. The issue is the mindset of the person with the question, which is more important at this time. So that's number 1. That's the first stage that I'll use when it comes to answering a question, or which is very similar to doing an evangelism script because I'm trying to solve a problem also, right? Now, stage 2 is I'm actually going to figure out answers. So the first one is about fear and anxiety, right? So my answer's got to answer the question about fear and anxiety. So what are my answer is going to be, I'll have, I need to answer the question of fear and anxiety. And then after answering the question of fear and anxiety, I'm going to take all the questions point by point, but I have to resolve the question first about the fear and anxiety, right? Because fear and anxiety is a very difficult approach because it's very focused on negative things. And if anything, it paralyzes you to do nothing because you're so scared. Like, oh my gosh, I have this fear in my heart. I don't know what to do, but how would I know this? How would I know that, right? So then after I find my answer, like, okay, so here's my answer, right? I'm going to find my answers, and then the third point I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting points in to fill in my answers. So let me give you the answers point by point, right? So the first answer I'm going to give, and I talked about it, is paralysis by analysis. And what does this mean? It's a term used in sports commentating where you have a very skilled, a very capable person, an athlete, who ends up making a big mistake or ends up doing nothing because they don't want to make a mistake. And it means that they're thinking too much. So like even with a baseball player, they're thinking too much about the pitch that they're not just naturally swinging. They're like unsure, so they keep striking out kind of thing, right? So what happens is paralysis by analysis for us in this situation is we think constantly about, oh no, but what if this happens? And what if this happens? And what if this happens? And what if this happens, right? And how do I know it's too negative? Well, it's definitely too negative because a what if never happened, but a what if can be positive and negative. But if you're only thinking about the negative, then I know like, ooh, okay, this is not a good sign because what ifs are both positive and negative. But a lot of times when you have fear and anxiety, you're very, very focused on the negative, right? If you think about paralysis by analysis, if people were like this, if every person was like this, there would be no great people in history. There would be no explorers. There'd be no inventors. There'd be no creators because no one would ever discover or create anything new because they're too scared to either waste money or waste time because it's never going to work anyways kind of thing, right? And I would give a sports analysis. I gave a couple of sports analysis, sports examples, analogies too, right? So that would be my first one that I would be focusing on as my first answer. And my second answer I would give to you is kind of on the same line is there are some problems that are good. There are such things as good problems, right? For instance, the example I gave in segment number 1 was there's a different, like when you have no newcomers, that's just a bad problem. A good problem is there's too many newcomers. We can't handle them all. That's a great problem. How many of us would die for that type of problem that in our churches, we had so many newcomers flooding in, we didn't have enough people to take care of them? That's a great problem. And then I use some examples of business to try to figure out and solve how to do this. Right? It would change our lecturing to group lecturing. It would change our, the way we value, the way we choose people to teach us, stuff like that. Like there's so many other things that we can come up with and find new innovative ideas if we had that problem, right? So those are going to be my answers for fear, for the fear and anxiety, for the mentality part. Then after that's done, I would go into the questions about, hey, how do you know the will, right? Well, number 1 is, the first thing I would say is, well, if you really, really want to know the will, important thing is I would talk to people who have done the blessing, people who have those stories, and you will get real life testimonies of how they found the will. And one great example is Love and Life with Aaron and Chelsea. Like they go over their story of how they were blessed. And I think it's a great story. And when you look at that, you should be like, oh, wow. They found out the will this way. Talk to another couple. They're going to say, oh, I found out the will this way. Talk to another couple. I found out the will this way. And you're going to find that every person has a different way. It's not just a feeling. It's not just, oh, they like the same song that I like, or there's just something that they had in mind and it was able to fulfill it through, by meeting that person, right? So that would be the first one is, how do you know the will? It's going to be different for every person. And my best thing I'll tell you guys is find out Talk to people who have gone through it, and you'll hear their stories, and you'll realize, oh wow, this is amazing. Right? That's the first thing I do. The second question I go into, it talks about the question is about what if God's will, like what if you know God's will, you confirmed it, but then it kind of forces you into a marriage that is more about responsibility and not about love, right? And in this case, I would say that this has to do with, because of the fear and anxiety, we kind of lose sight of how great and amazing God's will is, right? And first I would talk about the importance of God's will. And I think finding God's will is the bonus. It's not bonus. It's the biggest thing that matters. It's bigger than us just finding someone we like. In the world, which is obviously it's not working the way when it's not focused on God. You find someone you love and you're not sure if it's the will or not. You're just finding someone you love, right? In Providence, we're all about God's will first. Then we believe that everything else will come together. So I will first say, like, when we just talk about God's will, how important is it? Well, which one's more important? Finding someone you like, can fall in love with, or God's will? And to know the difference between the two, which one's more important, all you need to do is, which one would you rather have, right? Would you rather be in a situation where you found someone you like, but you don't know it's God's will? Or you absolutely know it's God's will, but you don't know if you like them? Which one is more important? And obviously, as people of God, we're like, oh, actually, no, I want to know God's will. I really do, right? And that's one thing that people need to know is how important the will is first. And then I would start going into how great God's will is, that God's will, and we've heard this many times, God's will contains your will. And God knows us better than we do. He knows us better than our parents and everyone else around us. And if we understand this, what does that mean? It means that inside God's will contains your will. So it's not going to just be God's going to just find someone for, that's going to fulfill his will, and it's just going to be someone you absolutely loathe or hate, right? What's going to happen is we have to realize is if God's will contains our will, then the things that we want also are going to be in there too. Sometimes we just don't realize it in the beginning. And this one thing I did not add, and I just thought about this right now as I was doing this, was another thing is there's also free will. There is free will. And in the end, God will never force you to be with someone you don't want to be with. There's free will inside of this, where God will open the doors again, and you have the will to marry someone else, right? So I would say that, like, this is how I would answer in those 3 steps. Right? Number 1 is listen carefully and find the real question. Sometimes it requires us to ask more questions. Second thing is, what are my answers? I got to answer the question of fear and anxiety. That's the number 1 thing I got to answer first. Then I go into what are my points to prove my answer to be right. Right? And then I go over each and every one of those answers and all the different things around each of them. And then the 4th thing I would do is then it's time to arrange them into a good lecture format. Right? If I can arrange them into good lecture format, that changes a lot because there's many different styles and ways that you're able to do a lecture. For instance, when Sunseam teaches a sermon, it's always the answer first, and then we go into the message, where when we do 30 lessons, because it's something shocking and surprising, we go into the problem, and then we figure out the answer, like all the reasons why it doesn't work, and then we go into the answer, right? That's kind of like a regular lecture format, and that's the way I would do these things. And that's kind of where my mind is going through when I'm answering questions, when we're going over certain things that are in the questions that people have and such too. So that is definitely something that I hope that you guys will be able to understand. It'll be something that we can really be able to get our hearts and our minds to know even better. Okay, so there it is, guys. That is today's evangelism scripts. I just went over kind of the style or the way what my mind goes through when I'm answering these questions or making these evangelism scripts. Okay, there it is, guys. That is the end of today's evangelism scripts word study. Hope you guys enjoyed it, which means we're going to move into the final segment, which is health is happiness. But let's get into the final music break of the day.
Yeah, Providence is true, represents Sierra West Africa.
In 1945, the man on mission was born. 1978, he started his work. He teaches us the word of the time period. We listen to the word and then we realize that's finally have become a bride. We have become a bride. That finally we have become a bride. So now we are raptured. Now we are raptured. I said bride. Now we are raptured. I said bride. Now we are raptured. I said bride. I met the man on the mission. I heard his word and took action. My spirit is made. I said bride. Now we are raptured. Hey. I met this man on the mission. I heard his word and took action. My spirit is made, I said bride, now we are raptured. I said bride, now we are raptured. I said bride, now we are raptured. I said bride, now we are raptured.
Now I'm a bride, you are a bride. We all are brides and now I will rapture. Now you will rapture, we all rapture together in this mission. So God be the glory. Here is the time of the bride, the time we need to smile, the time we need to come together and live a life. So God be the glory, cause now I live a holy. We'll have to tell a story, now we'll have a victory.
Now we are raptured. I said bride, now we are raptured. I said bride, now we are raptured. I said bride, now we are raptured. Now we are raptured. I said bride, now we are raptured. I said bride, now we are raptured. I said bride, now we are
Now raptured as a bride, put your life on the line. Take the word of the man on mission, put them in your mind. The word we've been waiting for, now is the time. Now is the time we're gonna say.
Now we are raptured. I said bride, now we are raptured. I met the man on the mission. I heard his word and took action. My spirit is made, I said bride, now we are raptured. Hey. I met this man on the mission. I heard his word and took action. My spirit is made, I said bride, now we are raptured. I said bride, now we are raptured. I said bride, now we are raptured.
It's Kima on the mix.
Okay, so let's get into today's final segment on this Wednesday podcast. And of course, we have Health is Happiness. And I love these segments about health that we're all receiving more and more each and every week. Today, we're going to go into strength training. I think next week is cardio and then overall view on living an active lifestyle. And this is going to be by Yuan Yu over there in Singapore. Hope you guys really, really enjoy this. So please welcome all the way from Singapore. This is Yuan Yu with Health is Happiness.
Hello everyone, my name is Yuan Yu and I'm from Singapore, currently studying physiotherapy and am in my final year. For today's topic on Health is Happiness segment, I'll be speaking on strengthening training. I'd like to give thanks to the Holy Trinity for this opportunity, as well as Pastor Sky and Julius for this platform. As a disclaimer, this is general health advice. If you have any existing medical conditions or any questions, do seek for professional advice. Firstly, why am I talking about this? Well, in order to have a physically active lifestyle, there are three very important aspects. Firstly, strength exercises to improve muscular fitness. Secondly, cardiovascular or aerobic exercises to improve cardio fitness, also known as heart fitness. And number three, reducing sedentary activity. Today, I'll emphasize more on strength and we'll talk about cardio exercise in a future episode. Then, why talk about strength? Why not just do cardio, right? As we grow older, we naturally will lose muscle mass at approximately 3 to 8% per decade after the age of 30. And this rate of decline increases even more after the age of 60. Loss of muscle mass increases our vulnerability to injury and is accompanied by a progressive increase in fat mass and change in body composition. Wow, who knew that there were such negative effects, right? Also, strength training would therefore help to maintain or increase the amount of muscle we have and avoid this natural decline of muscle mass. One other thing that happens with age is that our bones become more brittle, but strength training can prevent this from occurring. Then, moving on to the how. According to the ACSM guidelines, which are the American Council of Sports Medicine guidelines, the gold standard, the good ones to go by, it is recommended to do strength on at least 2 non-consecutive days of the week. And on each session, to do 8 to 12 repetitions of 8 to 10 different exercises that target major muscle groups. Why 8 to 12 reps? This is the range to aim for the purpose of strengthening. Then for each set of exercise, it is to do it for 1 to 3 sets. And between each set, you can rest for 1 to 2 minutes. Besides strengthening, there are other aspects of training like hypertrophy, which is what many bodybuilders do, endurance, power, which have their own set of recommended reps, sets, and rest time, which I won't delve more into today. A general rule of thumb is that it is always good to work on strengthening for at least a period of 6 to 8 weeks before training other aspects like power. This is because it takes that amount of time for the body to see improvements. However, one can also focus mainly on strength and need not delve into other aspects as mentioned above. Then, how much weight should we carry, like the dumbbells at the gym? It is to aim for a load where you can do between 8 to 12 reps with good form, such that the next rep that you do, you will not be able to maintain good form or you will start to shake a lot. Aim for slow and controlled movements as well, such as when you do a squat, you want to take 1 second to go down, 1,000, and 1 second to come back up into standing, another 1,000. And this would lead to each rep taking up to 2 seconds. For these strengthening exercises, you can either do them with body weight, you can do them with free weights, which includes dumbbells and kettlebells, you can do them with resistance bands, weight machines, or even self-made free weights, such as household items like water bottles, bags filled with books, rice, etc. One question that people may have is when to use free weights and when to use weight machines. Both of them are suitable in strength training, but weight machines are generally easier to use and tend to be more suitable for those starting out with strength training. Using free weights is more suitable for someone who has been doing strength training for a while and has developed their muscular fitness. This is because using free weights is harder and you need to have more control as compared to weight machines. Think about using a leg press machine where you just need to push in one direction versus doing a squat with a barbell where not just pushing off with your legs, but you also need to maintain good form, which is harder to do so. Moving on, I will talk about some examples of a strength program. You can broadly split up the exercises based on lower body, core or back, and upper body exercises. And I'll share some variations as to how you can progress and make them harder. As to how to do them, there are many good resources online, such as YouTube, Instagram, etc. And it will be quite difficult for me to share this through the podcast verbally, but in the future, I personally do want to create an exercise video bank, which can demonstrate some of the key ways to perform the exercise correctly. Before doing strength, it is recommended to do some kind of warm-up. For instance, a 5-minute brisk walk, a jog, dynamic stretching, doing some of the exercises that you will do with weights without the weight, just with your body weight. For instance, if later on you're going to do squats, today is leg day, you're going to do squats with the barbells, then as a warm-up, you can do the squats with a lighter weight or just with your own body weight. Doing this would prepare the body to lift heavier weights and reduce the risk of injury. Just like how before you use the car, you need to warm it up for a short period of time. Now, moving on to the exercise and variations. Firstly, for the lower body, you can do things like squats, deadlifts, and lunges. And one instance of variation is that you can start with body weight squats, and if that is too easy, you can carry a weight with you, such as a dumbbell, a barbell, or if you do not have weights, you can also try single leg squats. Then moving on to core and back exercises. For the core, you can do things like crunches, dead bug. Dead bug. So a bug that is dead, that's the name of the exercise. And one other exercise that's really good is called the Payloft press. Payloft press. One example of variation is that for crunches, you can start with body weight crunches, and then you can hold on to a weight around your chest area. For the back exercises, some examples include Superman back extension, pull-ups, bent over barbell rows. And one instance of variation is you can start with Superman back extensions and then move on to doing pull-ups by jumping up to reach the bar and then slowly lowering yourself. And then move on to pull-ups with the help of a resistance band to make it easier. And then finally moving on to a standard pull-up. Next, for the upper body, some examples for chest exercises is doing push-ups, bench presses. And one example of variation is doing a push-up against the wall first, then doing a push-up on your knees, and then doing the standard push-up where you're only in contact with the ground on your toes and your hands. And to make things even harder, you can put your legs on an elevated surface. Then for the shoulder muscles, one example is doing lateral raises. You can start off with using light weight like 1 kg on each hand, and then move on to 2 kg, 3 kg, so on and so forth. And for arm muscles, biceps and tricep muscles specifically, you can do bicep curls, you can do overhead tricep extension, and you can do dips. So from this group of exercises, you can pick 8 to 10 of them to start off with your strength training program. As to when to progress, you want to aim to do the current workload well, and you're able to do 1 to 2 reps more than your desired number on 1 to 2 training sessions. To be safe, if you're starting out, then yes, you can be able to do the current workload plus 1 to 2 reps for 2 training sessions before carrying on. The key is to gradually progress and not to do too much too fast, as that is more likely to cause injury. And ways to progress for strengthening is you can increase the reps, increase the amount of weight, reduce the rest time, and do change one variable at each time. During exercise, do monitor how you're feeling. It is normal to have muscle ache, which can go away only in 2 to 5 days, but anything more than that, anything sharp pain, any breathlessness, giddiness, lightheadedness, cold sweats, chest pain, do take a break before you continue, but if it persists, do cease the activity and seek for medical advice. Last but not least, I'll end off with some proverbs on strength exercise. This first one is from a book that Sunsin wrote previously about living a healthy life, and the proverb says, if a person uses his body as it is without training, it will be weak because it is not trained. As a result, even the slightest rise in heat and cold temperatures will result in colds and sickness. It has a hard time because it is so susceptible to the effects of the environment. It becomes anxious and suffers even at the slightest trouble. That is why you must strengthen your physical constitution by training and strengthening your body. The next 2 proverbs come from 2022 November Pre-Dawn Proverbs. The second one says, make yourself and make the environment while enduring countless difficulties. Only then will you gain, enjoy, and live comfortably as much as you have worked hard. Then exactly what to work on? The next proverb says, anyone who has trained and strengthened his body, mind, and spirit will do things to the end and therefore will easily succeed. Therefore, let's all strive to develop ourselves both physically and spiritually. Take care everyone, and we'll meet all of you during the next episode. Goodbye!
And thank you so much, you for another wonderful episode of Health is Happiness. Hope you guys guys and girls received a lot of information on strength training, and hope it's something that all of us, as we get older and older, we will be doing more and more. All right? So there it is, guys. That is today's Wednesday podcast. Hope you guys have an amazing and awesome service tonight, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this.